This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You could find out everything you want to know or find out how to reach me or whatever you want to find out at my website at hikingbob.com. And there's links to my social media and my columns at the Colorado Springs Independent, all the other podcasts we've done here at Studio 809 Podcast, and my link to my photography website. And also you can sign up for a newsletter and all that kind of stuff. And even reach out and contact us, which we'll talk about that in a minute. We've heard from some nice people over the last couple of days. And all that stuff you can find at hikingbob.com. And today, joining me is my co-host, Kevin Wild Westendorf. Say hi, Kevin.
Hey, everyone. It's Kevin Wild Westendorf here. And you can find all my stuff on social media, mainly Facebook and Instagram at Wild Westendorf. And my website, www.wildwestendorf.com.
Great. And Kevin, I mentioned that we hear from people occasionally. And you and I have run into people say, hey, aren't you Kevin and aren't you Bob or something like that. I got a really nice message from somebody today. And they just said how they haven't been able to do any hiking this summer because of some illness. And they really appreciated following my hikes on Facebook. Because, as you know, Kevin, I post every single hike I do. Because I want people, I know that for most people, they probably don't care that I'm out hiking. But I want people to know that when I'm talking about a trail or an experience that I've been out there and done it. So it's, kind of a cool thing. So I really appreciate hearing from people. I've gotten some emails from people who appreciate the podcast and stuff like that. So we really appreciate hearing from people. And we encourage people to contact either Kevin or I. And we just gave you our websites, and they're on the show notes. Every single episode, they have at the bottom of the show notes is the links to our websites. We encourage people that if you have a question or a comment, or really what we really like is suggestions. If you know somebody who should be on the podcast, we definitely want to hear. We want to hear that because there's a lot of really great people out here who would be wonderful guests on the podcast, and we can't know about everybody, but some of you all out there, and some of your suggestions have been really great, and we've had people on here. Sometimes we get a suggestion and we reach out to people and they'd rather not be on the podcast, and you know what? That's okay. We're definitely not going to make anybody be on here, berate people till they're on here. That's obviously not going to be a good thing. We don't definitely, we try not to bully anybody. That's not Kevin or I style to bully anybody or anything like that. But if you have a suggestion for a topic, or if you have a suggestion for a guest, we definitely look forward to hearing from you about that. So check out either Kevin or I's website and our social media. My goal is to answer every single email or every single direct message, unless it's, like we hate you or the typical spam. If I get one more message about if you join up with us, we'll make you a partner in our company and you can...
I hate that.
No, I'm not doing that.
I've gotten a bunch of those too.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
And a part of why I like to post every hike that I do, I may not always post it on Instagram. It'd be on Strava. If it's a small, quick stroll in Red Rocks or something, I'm not going to take 8 photos and be like, oh, you've seen the same photos, the same stuff over and over again. But I like being able to go back to my GPX and my spreadsheet to recall certain aspects about a hike. But what's nice about having Strava is that I can just direct them to that link and they can look at all the details and stuff instead of me trying to send a spreadsheet over.
Right. That's a good idea. I keep a spreadsheet too. I don't share the spreadsheet, but when I post on Facebook, I always have the GPS track off of the mapping program that I use. And I'm beginning to more and more use Cotrex. Just today, there was when we're recording this today, there was a message from somebody who I mentioned. I was in Mueller State Park over the weekend, which I did a hike there. Really nice, almost 6 mile hike. And somebody said, hey, we're going to be camping there next week. We're only going to be there for like a night and a day. What are some trails we can do? Well, he's camping, so I know that's the north end of the park. So I gave him a couple of suggestions, and I put links to those trails from Cotrex into the reply that I sent them so that they can just click on that and go, oh, there it is. Near the campground, so I know where they're staying. So I didn't give them, they're going to be at the north end of the park or the campground. Didn't necessarily give them trails to hike at the far south end. To try to make it reasonable. But we do like hearing from people, and it is a lot of fun to do that. Thanks, everybody. So, Kevin, when we left last week, you were getting ready to go do a hike up the Crestone Needle.
Yep.
A 14er.
Class 3.
foot, a class 3, so one of the more difficult ones. And Mother Nature,
Oh, man.
who we know doesn't like you or I, just basically dumped on the entire Pikes Peak region.
Yeah.
And so you were going to do this on Saturday, and Saturday's weather just went to garbage. We went from 80 and 90 degree weather to 50 degree weather and rain
Just
all
overnight. Oh,
day.
yeah.
It never stopped raining. Tell us what happened with your hike.
So we had decided to wait till, so once we noticed in the forecast that the Sangre de Cristo Range was headed for some bad weather on its Saturday, we decided to just wait, because you don't want to make a call if it's too many days out. Because I've seen the weather forecast change where like we're gonna get snowed and bam, it's gonna be a day where it's sunny and 65. So we waited till Friday, because Friday morning we saw that it was gonna start snowing up in that range, and with the constant rain, the snow, the possibility of ice, it being class 3, so you're climbing without ropes, and just. Even with gloves, you don't want to risk slipping and falling. So we decided to postpone it just out of safety's sake. So we haven't figured out our next day for it yet, but yeah, it's better safe than sorry. And plus, I just didn't want to, even if there was no snow or anything and it was just going to be rainy and foggy, I don't want to do a hike like that and get to the top and I can't see anything.
I completely agree. So a couple things I liked about the decision-making process you guys had. One, you paid attention to the weather. You waited, because you and I have talked about anything more than 72 hours old is always iffy.
Yep.
And sure enough, but this time they were dead on. They said it was going to be here, it was going to be crappy weather, and it sure as heck was. You evaluated the hazards, the risk, did a good risk assessment.
Yeah.
This is going to be a difficult hike. Why make it any more difficult by doing it in terrible weather? So you avoided the get-it-done-itis.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the other very valid point you made was you may not decide to do Crestone Needle ever again. So you got to make your first and only, what could be your only shot at it, count. So why go up there in a day when you get up to the top of this beautiful 14er and all you see is the tops of clouds of everything below you? Your payoff isn't very great. And you and I have talked about this a lot. We'll do a long, difficult hike if there's a payoff at the end.
Yep.
Your payoff at the end could very well have been a whole lot of gray.
And just putting ourselves at unnecessary risk too, just for no payoff.
So I applaud you guys for your very excellent decision making. And this has been a topic we've covered. The last couple of episodes, we've talked about where people have made some really questionable decisions about hiking. And it was typically in hot weather, not necessarily cold weather, but weather is weather, and have gotten themselves in trouble. And there was another incident this past weekend in California. A couple went hiking. It was 114 degrees. Go out hiking. One of them starts to suffer some heat-related incidents. The other one leaves the cell phone with the first person. Leaves to go look for help. What do we say about splitting up? Don't ever split up. The first person gets found completely independently. The other person isn't found for 3 days and obviously deceased and way off trail. The decision making when people were going out in this 115 degree weather, it's like, why are you doing this? It's not that important. But the same applies for cold weather. I mean, we know that weather can change suddenly, which is why we always talk about the 10 essentials and why you need to be prepared for changes in weather. But if the weather forecast says the weather's going to be crappy, and you get up that morning, you look outside, and sure enough, the weather's crappy, there's no reason to go do this.
Yeah, and the projected temps in that area was going to be in the low 30s. So maybe not quite freezing, but very, very close to it. And it just puts you even at more risk of hypothermia and frostbite.
And ice.
Yeah.
Ice on the trails because it was a rainy day. Funny part was I ran into a family when I was hiking in Mueller State Park over the weekend. They were from Houston. It was their last day. They were having a great day. And by Sunday, the weather was beautiful.
Yeah.
The weather was gorgeous. I had a great day hiking there. And I ran this family from Houston. They were at one of the ponds there, and I was chatting with them. They said, yeah, we were just in Buena Vista the other day. So while we were having this 50-degree terrible weather, Buena Vista, which is way over in the mountains, it was 73 degrees and sunny out there. I'm like, why didn't Kevin decide this was the day to do Mount Princeton or something, which is right there?
Yeah, I noticed that on the social media where I was seeing friends up in the Arkansas River Valley and further west, and the weather looked fine.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, why didn't any of us think to like, hey, let's do a different 14er in an area where the weather is going to be fine.
Right.
It was just I think we were so focused on the needle, it was just kind of like, oh, well, we can't do it, so let's postpone it, and just didn't think to suggest other mountains.
And the drive time to go out to Buena Vista would have been about the same as it would be for you to get to South Colony Lakes, where you hike up to do Crestone Needle.
Yep.
It's about 2 hours either way. But hey, you know what? It's okay. You're here. Your friends are still here. Nobody got hurt. The only question now is, are you going to have time to do this before it gets too late in the year? You're going to have to wait till next summer, because we're getting at that point. We're getting kind of close. Unless you do it really, really soon, you may run out of your window to do that, let's say, safely.
Well, this Sunday I'm doing Mount Evans with another friend, and that's a fairly easy class 1. I mean, it's easy in terms of a 14er. You know, the trail is manicured and it meanders up. The amount is it's a lot like bar trail, except it's not nearly as long. And I believe Mount Evans is the one that has the road that goes up to it, right?
The road has been closed up for the season already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they do. It has it has the road that goes to the top, and there's some very old stone buildings still up there. Lots of you'll see a lot of mountain goats up there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But that road has been closed, but the trail should still be open.
Yeah.
The trail's, I think, pretty much always open, but you can't drive up there anymore. So you can't cheat and drive up there and hide your car someplace and say, we hiked up here. Not that you guys are going to do that. So you're going to give it, do you think you're going to make it in this year? Or?
For Crestone Needle, I'm not sure yet. It depends on the schedule of the original group of friends. And if, all of our schedules are different, so it's just kind of like we had this one Saturday that was like the perfect day for it.
The stars, the moon, the planets all lined up and everything. Yeah, I hear you. Well, hopefully you get to do that, but really good job on doing a risk assessment for that day. It's a shame they couldn't wait 24. I mean, a lot of things got canceled that day. The What If celebration that I mentioned last week I was going to be at, that got canceled, and that was a huge event that was going to take over most of downtown, and you can't just reschedule that. They're permitting, and you have to arrange traffic control, and
like all 6 blocks are blocked off.
Yeah, and that had to get canceled, and I haven't heard that they're going to reschedule. I can't imagine they would. I think we're just going to try it again next year. So a lot of things really went to pot over a 24-hour window. But, welcome to weather in Colorado. And today, we're recording this on Monday. Today, it's back in the upper 70s. It's going to be in the 80s the rest of the week. It's going to be nice and warm. We're just kind of, 24 hours. I was supposed to go to the last game of the Rocky Mountain Vibes, the last baseball game for the season. They still played for some reason, but I had invited a bunch of friends, had a bunch of tickets, and I called them up and said, listen, don't feel like you have to go, because I'm not going to freeze. And by that time, by game time, it was like 43 degrees and it was raining. And I don't even know why they're playing.
I went to the Switchbacks game still, and...
You and 20 other people in the stands?
Yeah. Oh, it was awful. So after halftime, we were like, no, let's finish this.
Yeah. I called everybody who I gave tickets to, and I just said, if you want to go to the game, you're welcome to, but do not feel you have to, because I gave you tickets. If you don't want to go, it's miserable cold out there. So I just want to make sure everybody felt, comfortable with not going. And when I could see, they broadcast their games on YouTube, and of course the camera angles are a little limited, but did not appeal to be more than like maybe 5 people in the stands.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why they were even there. So we're moving into winter, although it doesn't feel like it, and I think we're still going to be in some pretty warm weather for at least the rest of the month.
At least a month and a half, because it was like that last year where the weather really didn't cool down until the end of October.
Yeah. I think we're in the same thing. There was an article about we're having a triple threat of La Nina. What they mean a triple dip, which means this is the 3rd straight year of La Nina weather.
Okay.
And that means different things to different parts of the country. But for us, it looks like, again, a warmer, drier winter. Now, last year wasn't really all that dry of a winter. We had periodic snowstorms, but overall, and I'm talking about the Pikes Peak region, other parts of the Southwest, as we know with the Colorado River just dropping. It's obviously still a drought situation, but it looks like we're going to have our third year of that, which means warmer and drier weather for us. And we talked about earlier in the year how we had one below zero day, and it was the first one we've had in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
In Colorado Springs, where I can remember we used to have that every winter. We'd have a week of below zero temperature. So that's coming up. I'll see if we can get somebody, a meteorologist, on to talk to us about what all that means.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun to do. So let me see if I can. I know a few people. We'll see if we can make that happen.
I'm sure you do, yeah.
Kevin, we've been talking about this for a while. This has been in the works. It's the Keep Colorado Wild Pass, which is going to be, starting the 1st of January, a $29 fee that will be added automatically to all vehicle registrations. You can take it off if you don't want to do it. But what it's going to be is it's going to be a $29, basically, year-round state parks pass. Now, in retrospect, if you want to buy a state parks pass, daily state parks passes run between $9 and $12, $9 and $11, depending on the park. Or a year-round pass costs between $80 and $120. There are some exceptions for like disabled military get in for free all the time. There are some senior passes that are available. But all of them, except for the free military pass, free disabled military pass, all of them cost more than $29.
Yeah.
So they're adding this on. So the issue came, since it's tied to your vehicle registration, obviously not everybody's vehicle gets registered in January. I think my Jeep does. Out of the two cars and the camper we have, that's the only one that does.
I think mine's in March.
Yeah.
So not too far after.
So the question has been, well, if I bought a year pass in November, because that's when mine ran out, but I'm renewing my registration in January or February, how does that work?
Oh, okay.
And it's been a thing that Colorado Parks and Wildlife has had to wrap their head around. How do we work this? They have finally come out with a refund policy. And I'm going to provide a link to it because it's a little convoluted. But basically there are situations, here's what they're saying in their news release, where current CPW annual Parks Pass customers will have overlapping annual passes. For example, like I said, if you bought a year pass in November, but you register your vehicle in March and you kept that $29 fee, now you have two passes for your car. How does that work? So they've approved a refund option that will cover the time between when a current annual pass expires and when a vehicle registration is due. There's going to be I'll have links in the show notes. It'll be a prorated amount based on the price of the original pass divided by 12 months and rounded up to the nearest dollar. So per month it'll range between $3 and $10 depending on the originally purchased pass type for the vehicle. The refund amount is based on the number of remaining months with no refunds for passes that have been used for 9 months or more. So after you get your Keep Colorado Wild Pass, so after 60 days after you renew your registration and you add that thing on there, you can then file for a refund. I think this is only going to be an issue for the first couple of years of this, because then by that time everybody will get in sync, I think, with just... I'll just wait till my registration renews and pay the $29 instead of the $80 or $120 for a year pass. And the $120 is the pass that hangs from your window that you can transfer from vehicle to vehicle. The regular pass is a sticker that goes on your vehicle. There's probably going to be some kind of thing on your registration that's going to show that you have a pass. Yeah. That you paid for this. So there's going to be some method to do this. If you have a disabled military plate, then in your registration process, they'll apply that towards so you'll still get your free pass. And the reduced price passes will be available through the application and authorization from CPW. There's going to be an online platform. I guess that hasn't actually been set up yet. Can be refunded to the card, the file in the system that you got it from. All the refunds will be paid in the form of a CPW shop gift certificate or a check. It could take up to 90 days for someone to receive a gift certificate. or it could be 90 days for somebody to receive a check. So a CPW shop gift certificate may be a more desirable option. Now, my suggestion would be if you have a refund and it's going to be like in the $40 range, I would suggest applying that to a state wildlife area pass.
Oh, yep.
Because that's an annual pass, and that would allow you to actually now access state wildlife areas. Because this CPW park pass, as we know with current park passes, does not work for state wildlife areas. So I would suggest maybe you look at that. There's a lot of cool stuff on the CPW gift shop website.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So there's probably something you like. My suggestion would be like if your current state park pass is going to expire in the next couple of months. We're talking October, November, December, and your vehicle registration is due like in the first couple of months of the year. I would not, unless you're going to go to a state park a lot, I would just buy daily passes till you hit that.
Yeah, that's my plan.
That registration time. Now, I'm a CPW volunteer, and CPW has a program for volunteers that once you do 48 hours in a year, you get a free park pass.
Oh, cool.
They haven't decided that I've heard what they're going to do for volunteers, whether we can still get the state park pass and opt out of the Keep Colorado Wild Pass, or if we can apply, if we already got the Keep Colorado Wild Pass, if we can have them send us a state wildlife area pass or something along those. They haven't figured that out yet. Which, by the way, if you want to volunteer for CPW, that's a great benefit. It's a wonderful benefit to get a free.
I didn't know you could do that. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it's a wonderful benefit if you're a volunteer to get a free pass. So they're still trying to figure out that part of it. Last time I talked to some of the folks there, it's kind of a convoluted thing. Anytime you shift gears and implement a new program or a policy, there's always, well, what do we do with the old one, and how do we fix this? And I know there's been a lot of head scratching, and my guess would probably be loud, late meetings about how to fix, how to resolve these issues. But I think after everybody gets into the groove of, I'll just get it when I get my registration and pay the $29.
Yeah,
it's certainly a whole lot cheaper than it is now. And I encourage everybody, when you get your registration, to pay the $29, and then you can go to any state park anywhere as often as you want for $29. It's a hell of a deal.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So definitely suggest doing that. I will have a link to the news release, which has a lot more information we went here. This is a very long news release, and it's very complicated, in the show notes, and there are links in there for how you can get more information. So on January 1st, if you're getting your registration renewed, definitely look at your timing. Now, if your registration isn't getting renewed till next December, then buy your pass. It'll be good to the end of the year. You won't get a refund, but you'll only be a month overlap.
Yeah.
November, December, by all means, just go ahead and get your pass as you normally would. But if you're going to, be renewing it pretty soon, like mine does in January, then I would definitely, maybe it's time to just buy a couple of daily passes till you're thinking of. Not that it makes difference, they'll refund you, but why go through all that hassle? Dishing out the money, waiting to get the money back.
Yeah.
It's back and forth and stuff like that. My goal is to just keep everything as simple as possible.
And a reminder, if you're in the Springs area, you're very, very close to 3 wonderful state parks, which is Cheyenne Mountain State Park, Mueller State Park, and Caswell Canyon. And especially if you live, and there's Lake Pueblo.
Roxborough.
Yes, and yeah, especially if you're in the Denver area, there's a ton of state parks around there.
A boatload of them up there. So yeah, state parks, I think Colorado state parks being a completely non-tax funded. So this is how they're funded, basically.
Yeah.
The wildlife side is funded by fishing license, hunting license, boating registrations, off-road vehicle registrations, things like that. The park side is funded pretty much by park passes and fees for campgrounds and stuff like that, which are very reasonable fees. So this is a way to fund our state parks, to fund our wildlife operations without it being a burden on taxes. So if you use it, you pay it. If you don't use it, you're not paying it because you're not, it's not a thing on your taxes.
Yeah. Very
few states operate this way. Most of them operate at least on tax basis, and many of them operate on accommodation. They charge fees and they're in the tax. They get tax money too. So this is one of the few places where there is. When I say no tax money, there's been some tax money allocated, especially in the last couple of years, for one-time things. Like Fisher's Peak State Park, which we're going to talk about here in a second, got an influx of some. The state had a little bit of extra money because we know we've gone through some pretty good economic times in the last couple of years here in Colorado. They got an influx of a couple $1 million to get that state park rolling. They're not going to constantly get tax money.
Yeah.
That was just to get the thing rolling because Governor Polis has been of the opinion that he doesn't want to see what's happened traditionally is we get a state park and then we spend 5 years trying to get enough money to do something with it. His thing was, when I made a state park, I want it open. So he got some money, got the legislature, but they're still going to rely on fees to keep that park running and to make improvements after this money runs out. So that's kind of how, in a nutshell, and I've talked a lot in my column about how CPW is funded and how that works out and everything. Inevitably, somebody's going to say, what does my tax money go to? Well, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but it doesn't go to this. and it's usually an education thing. Speaking of Fisher's Peak State Park, they just released their park master plan, their draft park master plan. I will have a link to it in the show notes. It's like a 188-page document. I have not had a chance to look through it, all of it yet. Then what they were doing is they've invited everybody to look at the master plan, and then they're also opening a public comment period. So look at the master plan and then go online and complete a survey of what your thoughts are with the master plan. So it's a pretty exciting thing. I've done a podcast about it, provided some insight in it. I've had tours down there. It's limited open to the public right now. This is one of those things, like I said, the governor got the legislature to get some money in there so they could get this open quickly, but it's very limited to what's available now. The plans for it, the vision of it is wonderful with campgrounds and backcountry stuff and eventually a trail up to the top of Fisher's Peak. There's a lot of really cool stuff that's in the works there. So in any case, Fisher's Peak State Park, the draft master plan is now available. They would like you to provide feedback. I encourage you to provide feedback. This is your chance to look at what's planned and to comment on what you want to see, what you think of this. So by all means, take a look at this and reply on the survey. I think you have until October 9th. Yeah, they want everybody to review it and provide input by October 9th. So you've got a little bit of time. There will be links in the show notes here. I will also include this in my next newsletter, links to this. But this is a pretty exciting thing. This is when things really start to get rolling. When they get that master plan rolling, this is the blueprint for what the park is going to look like. This is the vision for what this park can look like. They've been doing a lot of local stuff down there with people in Trinidad and nearby areas about what do you want this park to look like and the input. I mean, they've developed a trail building program at Trinidad State College.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Just to they're going to teach people how to build trails, and their experience is going to be working on trails in this state park. I mean, it's a great experience for people.
It's a great idea, too.
Yeah. So there's been some really good brain power expended on getting this park up and running. And it's a beautiful place. I can tell you from what I've seen of it, and the chances I've had to go in there with the park manager and stuff, it is really a pretty cool place.
And if you didn't know, Trinidad it's going through a bit of a rebirth now. There's all kinds of new shops and restaurants and businesses and hotels in the main strip, the downtown part of the town. So it's like it's becoming a destination spot, and it's even better with Fisher's Peak right there.
Yeah, and it's that big peak that looms right over the city.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. Yeah, I agree with you. And it's an old-fashioned, old Western town, to be honest with you. It's a pretty cool little town, and I think this is going to be a real plus for the town when this park, as it develops. And none of the stuff happens overnight. There may be some parts of this thing that take years. At Cheyenne Mountain State Park, which has been open for a while, we just last year put in 2 cabins in the campground.
Oh, that's
area.
right, yeah.
They've been on the master plan since the beginning. That's how long it takes for some things to happen. And it turned out that project turned out to be way more complicated than it was envisioned. So it's a pretty exciting time. So look for that in the show notes. And also, if you're not a subscriber to my newsletter, this is a good time to become a subscriber, because I'll have the links in there, so you get the chance to look at that. Kevin, another thing has popped up in the news, and I don't want to put a whole lot of time into this because we're just getting some basic information on this. And by the time this airs, because we're recording this on Monday, it doesn't go live until Wednesday, things might change. But I got a couple of phone calls over the weekend about a rumor that the city of Colorado Springs was planning on closing Old Stage Road at night. Now, the closure would be where and this can be very local stuff, where the pavement ends and the dirt road begins.
Yeah.
There's already a gate there. The idea was they're going to start closing that road every night. And it's because there's problems on that road. Kids go up there and party, and there's accidents, and there's vandalism, and there's graffiti, and all this kind of stuff. And I can tell you in my time when I was with the sheriff's office here and I was an arson investigator, I was up there quite a bit investigating cars that were stolen and driven up there and then set on fire, and we would have to go up there and investigate and tow them out of there. And that's been a few years since I did that with the sheriff's office. Obviously, things haven't gotten any better. But the issue is anything past, pretty much almost everything past that gate is no longer in the city limits. The city limits may extend a little bit, but it's pretty much not in the city limits anymore.
Yeah.
Everything past there is either in El Paso County, Teller County, and the road itself is Forest Service Road. It eventually meets up with Gold Camp Road, and it's all Forest Service Road up there. So I have an issue with this whole thing. Two things I'm not a fan of, and people who listen to this podcast know this. I'm not a fan of timed entry and advanced reservations to go into parks.
Yeah.
I understand why they're there. I reserve the right to not be happy with them.
Same here.
Sorry about that. The other thing I don't like is closures. I don't like gates going up and closing things. Again, I understand why they happen. I understand why Guard of the Gods now gets closed. I understand why Palmer Park here gets closed. I understand why North Cheyenne Canyon Park has gates on it. Because a handful of idiots go up there into these parks and they do stupid stuff and they damage things. And the rest of us don't get to enjoy the park. I understand how these things happen. Doesn't mean I like them. But I get it. This is a little different. This is a road. There are people who live up there. There are businesses up there. There's state wildlife areas up there. There are hiking trails up there. There's a lot of stuff going on Old Stage Road and Gold Camp Road. And I have an issue with the city deciding that they want to close this road. Now, to be fair, nothing has been finalized. Although there was supposed to be a public meeting to discuss this later this week, that's been canceled. But I really have a concern about the overreach of the city. Have they talked to the Forest Service about this? Have they talked to the county about this? Have they talked to both counties about this? Is Teller County going to close the other end of it, or is somebody going to get on this road way up in Cripple Creek and drive 20 some odd miles to find out the gates closed at the other end? And
that's a very, very long drive.
Yeah, because it's not a great road. It's a dirt road, and it's
washboardy, very, very slow.
Washboardy and potholey and narrow and all kinds of things. So I will say that with what I know of this now, and I will admit it's not a lot because there's not a lot of information out there. Only one news media, as of Monday, has done a story about this. And they did talk to an official from the city, and they did confirm they were considering it. Phone calls I've gotten from people are they're not happy. And as I explained to them, I don't know enough about this, but I will say that on one hand, I'm not happy either. I don't like gates. I don't like closures. On the other hand, having been in law enforcement and fire protection and having dealt with stuff on the road, I kind of know where these officials are coming from. But I'm not sure this is the answer. The other part of this problem is that this is because no agency wants to, I shouldn't say wants to. Some don't want to. Others just don't have the ability to provide more law enforcement up there. So let me make that clear. I know the Forest Service has not nearly enough law enforcement personnel. We're talking about people with guns and badges and police cars with red lights on them to go up there and enforce all the rules that need to be enforced. I know that the sheriff's office, El Paso County, is the biggest sheriff's office in the state, and they rarely ever have time to send somebody up there. I know that Colorado State Patrol, typically when I hear them on the scanner, unless it's a fatality accident or serious injury, will not go up there and investigate an accident. Their argument is that's on the Forest Service property. Tell the Forest Service to do it. Well, let's go back a step. We already talked about the Forest Service doesn't have enough people to do it. It's a no man's land for law enforcement. It shouldn't be that.
Correct.
There should be adequate protection that if you or I or anybody else goes up there, we shouldn't have to worry about what's happening. Typically during the day, it's not an issue. It's the crap that goes on at night. And as some older people will tell you, nothing good happens after midnight. Again, but I'm not happy with it. I don't know the exact hours they were going to close it, or was it going to be midnight or 1 o'clock and reopen it at 5, or was it going to be a day, at sundown and not open until sunrise, which means in the winter it'd be closed for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knows, but I will go on the record as saying that I am not a fan of any time I hear that we're going to close more and more public lands. And I really have an issue when it appears that the city is flexing their muscle where they may not really have the right to do so. I don't like that at all. Yeah, they closed the road there, but everything beyond that's not yours. So do you have the right to close access to that? And have you talked to everybody? There really is not much information out there. And if I didn't get a phone call over the weekend, I would not have known this was happening. But a connected citizen who lives down there, at least one, and since then I heard from others, but there was one initially that was like, I don't like what's going on. I'm like, you need to tell me because I haven't heard a thing. And I reached out to some other people in the community, in the outdoor rec community, and they're going, we didn't hear anything either. So this has been kept under wraps. Some people want to blame the Broadmoor Hotel for this because, well, they're a convenient whipping boy. The city denies that the Broadmoor is behind this. I can only take the city at their word for it. It's a love-hate relationship with the Broadmoor Hotel. A lot of this goes back to the Strawberry Fields land swap to a certain degree. Let's just put that behind us. It's over and done with, and it's nowhere nearly... It hasn't anything... All the bad things people said were going to happen with that land swap did not happen. It's all been a positive. But in any case, people have their biases for whatever reason. They have their biases, and they'll look for who to blame wherever they can find who to blame. But overall, I will say that I'm not a fan. What's your thoughts on this, Kevin? I feel free to say I'm wrong about this.
Oh, no, I think I'm on the same page as you. It's just a lack of, how do I want to say this? There's definitely a lack, like you said, from some who don't want to take accountability or authority over it. And then there's also just a lack of resources too. And it's frustrating that the first go-to answer is, well, let's put a gate up. And I don't like that.
I'm hearing that argument from a lot of people. It's like, well, every time they run into a problem they don't like, they close a gate. Now, that's not entirely accurate. There have been times when they've tried other things, and that ends up being the default. But it certainly appears, with more and more gates going up in more and more parks, it certainly looks like we can't handle this problem, so let's just put a gate up and stop people from going up there.
But especially because the Springs boundary ends up like right at that gate too, or close to it. So it seems like that's a stretch.
Yeah, I think they're stretching. So I don't know why they've canceled the meeting. I'll try to keep tabs on this. I'm going to be away for a solid 8 days starting later this week, so I'm not going to be around for a while. I'm going to be out of communications. It's going to be very difficult for me to keep up. But I hope that people email me, keep me in the loop. I'll keep tabs on this and see what I can find out, and I will share it with everybody. But I think the news media is getting clued in on this. I've sent some emails out to some news media folks that I know and said, other than me, I mean, I know I'm a news media person, but I've emailed people with a whole lot more reach than I have and said, hey, have you heard about this? And this may be something worth looking into. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, a couple things in life I would be happy to see go away. Timed entry, advanced reservations, and gates.
Yeah.
All those things would be things I would love to see just disappear from life. But I kind of know where they're coming from. We're going to make everybody happy with this?
Nope.
Certainly not. That's not going to happen. One more thing. This coming weekend is the International Association of Firefighters Fallen Firefighter Memorial Ceremony, Saturday at Memorial Park. It's on the northwest corner of the park. You can't miss it. It's a big, huge memorial, lots of black granite, stuff like that.
Oh, it's a beautiful memorial, too.
And I, unfortunately, have a couple of friends whose names are on a couple of those walls, and that we haven't done it in the last several years, so there's a lot of names going on that wall this year. I think there's 400 names because they're catching up with everything. Families are going to start coming in whose names are going to be going on there in the next couple of days. Well, actually, by the time this airs, they'll be coming into town.
Oh, okay.
Friday night downtown's a big celebration. Saturday night's a big celebration. I would take it as a personal favor if people took the time to go through there. Obviously, I don't expect everybody to stay all day for all the names going up there, but stop by and see the memorial. It is, as I was an official photographer for that event for more than 20 some odd years.
Right, yeah.
My pictures have appeared on the programs numerous times on the covers and inside. It was my way of returning the favor to the IFF. And like I said, I have a couple of friends whose names are on that wall, so it's a personal thing for me and for a lot of other people. So if you get a chance, stop by and see it. It's a beautiful sight to see. Go there at night when just around sunset. It is gorgeous to look at. It's very beautiful. Lots of money spent on that. Most of it privately raised. Actually, all of it privately raised. There's no tax money in there. It's all from union members' dues and donations. There's a separate foundation just for that and everything. And it's a pretty impressive sight. The ceremony is very impressive to see. And it'll tug at your heartstrings when you see families being given the flags.
Oh, I bet.
Because a member of theirs died in the line of duty in some manner. Unfortunately, way too many of them are occupational related cancers, especially those going back years. Like when I started, it's been more than 40 years ago that I started. I retired when I had 38 years. But, when I started, I can tell you that the gear that we wore was not nearly as protective as the gear that we have now. And you didn't wear a mask. So you breathed in all that crappy stuff that was being given off in a fire. I could tell you that I breathed in a lot of toxic stuff in my life, and the gear was not that good. So I would come out of every fire with heat rash and first-degree burns. Yeah. Because, it trapped the moisture. Then you go in this fire and you end up with a steam bath. I'd come out of every fire just burned. So I'm thankful that I've gotten to my age now after a long career, and so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, no issues. But it's always in the back of my mind how things were when I started in the late 70s, and the gear that's worn now. And I know 20 years from now they're going to look at the gear they're wearing now and going, "You wore that?"
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
It's just things progress. But in any case. Not to belabor the issue, but if you're around town this week, stop by Memorial Park, stop by the ceremony. The public is invited. The public is encouraged to attend. I think it's important that the public see, the sacrifices from our firefighters in the United States and Canada who are there, and how important we take it as firefighters, that we make sure these people are honored for their sacrifice, for their jobs and stuff like that. So, Kevin, we kind of talked about this. You don't have any plans for when you're going to redo or try to re-attack Crestone Needle, but do you have any other hikes coming up?
Just a hike up Mount Evans on Sunday, and then I have another hike planned with a friend, or we plan to do a hike. We just haven't planned a specific one yet for Saturday, so I'm excited about that to kind of make up for last weekend, because the weather is supposed to be much, much, much better. That's about it for now.
Okay. Well, next week I'll be on my trip to the Nat Geo trip.
I'm really excited
the Great Bear Rainforest.
For that.
Oh, me too. It's been 2 years in the works. I'm super excited. I'm actually starting to pack now because there's so much stuff I have to bring. And, we're going to a rainforest. I need a lot of wet weather gear and stuff like that. So we will have a podcast next week. I should have a column that I'm going to write ahead of time for the Indy that'll go in not this coming Friday, next Friday. There'll be one this Friday too. But there will not be a newsletter that next Saturday. So this Saturday, Sunday, there will be a newsletter. There will not be one the following week because I'm going to be away, for those who keep track of things like that. But I will have a lot of stories to tell, I hope. Some really good stories to tell about this trip. We are going to go look for the spirit bear. We're going to be going to a lot of what in Canada they call First Nations people's lands and see some cultural stuff. I think it's going to be very interesting and exciting and visually appealing. I will take a bazillion pictures on this trip. I just know it's coming.
I'd be upset if you didn't.
Well, I'd
be like, "Where's the real Bob?"
So anyway, Kevin, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.
We'll see you again in a couple of weeks and have you back on here. We'll talk about all the things that have happened between now and then. So thanks a lot, Kevin.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
And we'll talk to you later.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.